The forest was cloaked in the early hues of dawn, its shadows stretching long and menacing. Alex sat beside Shadow, the injured wolf, as the small fire from the night before dwindled to embers. His mind raced with plans for their next move. Shadow stirred beside him, its amber eyes flickering open. Despite the bandage wrapped tightly around its leg, the wolf tried to stand, only to collapse with a soft whimper. "You're not ready to move yet," Alex muttered, placing a reassuring hand on the wolf's back. "But we don't have much time." The distant sound of a gunshot shattered the fragile calm. Alex's heart lurched. The poachers were still hunting. He had hoped they would give up, but it seemed their determination was unyielding. He quickly packed what little he had, a water bottle, some cloth, and his knife, and doused the fire. The wolf watched him with a mix of trust and unease. "We'll get through this," Alex said, as much to himself as to Shadow. The two began their slow trek deeper into the forest. Alex carried Shadow as best as he could, though the weight of the wolf and the uneven terrain tested his endurance. The forest seemed to close in around them, its dense foliage a double-edged sword, offering both concealment and disorientation. The sound of footsteps crunching leaves and muffled voices grew closer. Alex ducked behind a large fallen tree, lowering Shadow gently to the ground. The wolf let out a low growl, sensing the approaching danger. "Shoo," Alex whispered, his eyes scanning the forest. 3 figures emerged, their silhouettes dark against the rising sun. The poachers were methodical, their rifles ready, their eyes scanning every shadow. One of them spoke, his voice carrying through the stillness. "I know it's close. Look for tracks." Alex's pulse raced. He had to act fast. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a stone, weighing it in his hand before hurling it into the bushes to their left. The sharp rustle of leaves drew the poacher's attention. "What was that?" one of them barked. "Over there," another replied, pointing toward the sound. As the poachers moved in the opposite direction, Alex seized the opportunity. He lifted Shadow and darted deeper into the forest, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. By midday, Alex and Shadow reached a stream, its clear water a welcome sight. Alex knelt down, lowering the wolf beside him. Shadow lapped at the water gratefully, its strength slowly returning. Alex took a moment to drink as well, his body aching from the exertion. "You're tougher than you look," Alex said, glancing at Shadow. The wolf responded with a quiet huff, its eyes watching him intently. But their brief respite was interrupted by a sound that sent a chill down Alex's spine, a dog's bark, sharp and urgent. The poachers had brought tracking dogs. Alex looked at Shadow, his jaw tightening. "We've got to keep moving." The chase resumed, the forest seeming to conspire against them with its labyrinth of roots and brambles. Alex's legs burned with every step, but he refused to stop. The sound of barking grew louder, the dogs closing in. Shadow, sensing the danger, let out a low growl, its body tensing. Alex crouched behind a cluster of rocks, his mind racing. He knew they couldn't outrun the dogs, not in their current state. An idea struck him. He grabbed a piece of cloth from his backpack and soaked it in the stream before tying it around Shadow's leg. Then he rubbed the damp cloth over his own boots, hoping to mask their scent. "Let's hope this works," he muttered, lifting Shadow once more. As dusk fell, the forest grew darker and more foreboding. Alex stumbled upon a cave, its entrance hidden behind a curtain of vines. He pushed through, his eyes adjusting to the dim interior. The cave was small but deep enough to provide shelter. He set Shadow down gently, the wolf's breathing heavy but steady. "We'll stay here for the night," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. Shadow's ears perked up, its gaze fixed on the cave entrance. Alex followed its line of sight, his hand instinctively reaching for his knife. The shadows outside shifted, and for a moment, Alex thought the poachers had found them. But it was a deer, its cautious steps barely making a sound. Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Shadow relaxed, its head resting on its paws. As the night deepened, Alex leaned against the cave wall, exhaustion washing over him. Shadow's steady breathing was a comforting rhythm, a reminder that they had survived another day. But Alex knew the danger was far from over. The poachers were relentless, and the forest was unforgiving. He glanced at Shadow, a flicker of determination lighting his eyes. "We'll make it out of this," he said softly. "Together." And with that promise, the man and the wolf settled into an uneasy sleep, their bond growing stronger with each passing moment. The forest woke slowly, shrouded in the pale mist of early morning. Inside the cave, Alex stirred, wincing as his sore muscles protested. He glanced at Shadow, who was still lying beside him, its chest rising and falling steadily. The wolf's leg, though bandaged, looked swollen, and Alex worried the wound might be worsening. Carefully, Alex leaned forward to check the bandage. Shadow's eyes flickered open, watching him with quiet trust. "Easy, boy," Alex murmured. "I'm just checking." The bond between them was growing stronger, but trust alone wouldn't keep them safe. Alex knew the poachers were still out there, searching for Shadow, and now for him too. Alex stepped outside the cave, scanning the forest for any signs of danger. The birdsong had returned, a good sign that the immediate area was safe. He filled his water bottle at a nearby stream, splashing some on his face to shake off the grogginess. Returning to the cave, he found Shadow attempting to stand. The wolf's determination was palpable, but its injured leg buckled under its weight. Alex knelt beside it, stroking its fur. "You're a fighter," he said with a faint smile. "But we're not out of the woods yet, literally." He crafted a makeshift sled from sturdy branches and vines, tying it together tightly. Carefully, he helped Shadow onto it, ensuring the wolf was secure but comfortable. The sled would slow them down, but it was their only option. By midday, Alex and Shadow were on the move again. The forest grew denser, the canopy above blocking out much of the sunlight. The shadows felt alive, pressing in around them. Alex's nerves were on edge, every rustle of leaves making him flinch. Shadow growled softly, its ears swiveling. Alex stopped in his tracks, listening. Then he heard it, the faint crack of a branch, too deliberate to be an animal. "They're close," Alex whispered. He pushed the sled behind a thick bush, crouching low beside Shadow. The wolf's growl deepened, its amber eyes fixed on the direction of the sound. Two poachers appeared, their rifles slung over their shoulders. They were talking in low voices, their eyes scanning the ground for tracks. "Keep searching," one of them said. "The boss won't be happy if we come back empty-handed." Alex's heart pounded. He clutched the knife in his hand, ready to fight if it came to that. Shadow seemed to sense his tension, its growls turning into a low rumble. The poachers moved closer, their boots crunching on the forest floor. Alex held his breath, his mind racing. Then, as one of the men turned toward their hiding spot, a sudden noise broke the silence, a loud snapping of branches in the distance. "What was that?" the second poacher asked, spinning around. "Could be the wolf," the first replied, motioning toward the noise. They hurried off, their voices fading into the distance. Alex exhaled shakily, his grip on the knife loosening. "That was close," he muttered, glancing at Shadow. "Too close." The rest of the day was a blur of cautious movement. Alex pushed the sled through the underbrush, his muscles aching with every step. Shadow watched him silently, its eyes reflecting both pain and gratitude. By evening, they stumbled upon a clearing with a small abandoned cabin. The structure was dilapidated, its roof sagging and its walls covered in moss. But it was shelter, and that was all that mattered. Alex pushed the sled inside, setting Shadow down gently on the floor. The wolf let out a soft whine, its body trembling from exhaustion. "I know, buddy," Alex said, stroking its fur. "We'll rest here tonight." He scavenged the cabin for supplies, finding an old blanket and a rusted tin of beans. The food was far from appetizing, but it would have to do. As night fell, Alex sat beside Shadow, sharing the meager meal. The wolf ate cautiously, its strength slowly returning. Outside, the forest was eerily quiet, the usual symphony of crickets and frogs conspicuously absent. In the dead of night, Alex was jolted awake by the sound of footsteps outside the cabin. His hand instinctively went to the knife at his side. Shadow was already alert, its ears pricked and its body tense. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. Alex's breath caught in his throat as the door creaked open, revealing the silhouette of a man. "Found you," the man said, his voice cold and menacing. Alex didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, slamming the door shut and shoving a piece of furniture against it. The man shouted, banging on the door with brute force. Shadow growled, its body coiled like a spring. Alex glanced at the wolf, then at the boarded-up window. "We're not staying here," he said. He pried the boards off the window, creating a narrow opening. Lifting Shadow, he pushed the wolf through first before climbing out himself. They ran, the sound of shouting and barking dogs chasing them through the forest. Alex's lungs burned, his legs threatening to give out. Shadow limped alongside him, its injured leg slowing it down. The two of them reached a rocky ledge overlooking a steep ravine. Alex stopped, his chest heaving as he searched for an escape route. Behind them, the poachers' voices grew louder. "We're cornered," Alex muttered, his mind racing. Shadow stepped to the edge of the ledge, its amber eyes scanning the ravine. The wolf let out a soft whine, as if urging Alex to follow its lead. "You're crazy," Alex said, shaking his head. But the sound of gunfire made the decision for him. Grabbing Shadow, Alex leapt off the ledge, plunging into the ravine below. The wind whipped past them as they fell, the world a blur of motion. They hit the water with a splash, the icy cold stealing the breath from Alex's lungs. He surfaced, gasping for air, and held on to Shadow as the current carried them downstream. When they finally washed ashore, the forest around them was quiet once more. Alex collapsed onto the sand, his body trembling from exhaustion and cold. Shadow lay beside him, its breathing shallow but steady. "We're alive," Alex whispered, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The poachers' voices were gone, drowned out by the roar of the river. For now, they were safe. But Alex knew the hunt was far from over. As he looked at Shadow, the wolf's amber eyes met his, and he felt a surge of determination. They had survived this far, and they would keep surviving, together.
Imagine the countless untold tales of bravery and loyalty between humans and animals. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling and heartfelt stories that remind us of the extraordinary power of trust and courage.